Hi everyone, my name is Erin Elizabeth Weinberg. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Welcome back if you've been here before. If this is your first time, welcome. Today I want to talk about how we are healthily reframe that can benefit us when we think about our relationship with ourselves is thinking about how we are more like a garden than a robot. Okay. And so I know there's a lot of things, if you're alive in this day and age, there's a lot of things that can push us to think we need to act like a robot more or be very mechanical. And there is some like nuance within this, but in general, we are not machines, we are not robots. It's much healthier and alleviating and kind and compassionate to ourselves to think about ourselves as more of like a garden than a robot. And so, what I mean by that is sometimes we think, okay, I have to go to my job. It's from 9 to 5, this type of day. I need to eat this exact thing and this typically, it's like very structured, very this, very that. But a lot of us, especially if you're a more intuitive, sensitive person, we actually can benefit from looking more of like us being a garden within ourselves and thinking about the ways we can show up in a loving, compassionate way for ourselves in that way. So, for example, sometimes it is important to know that we will need X, Y, and Z thing, but it doesn't have to be as regimented as, a lot of the shame that can come out of like, I'm not doing this in this particular perfect way every time. So something's wrong with me. Whereas instead, if you think about a garden, for example, right? You walk out into the garden and you kind of look around, you see what's going on. I definitely have to water my garden, but is there a spot that maybe needs a little bit more water than this one? Or is there like some weeds I need to pull out from here instead of that? Or maybe I need to prune this flower back instead of just letting it grow how it is. So understanding once you establish a healthy toolkit with yourself, which can be whatever that looks like for you, right? So it could be meditation, it could be yoga, it could be how you eat, it could be your affirmations, it could be, once you establish that within yourself and take some time exploring and thinking about how you can show up for yourselves in that way, then it's more important to say, okay, here's my toolkit. After I've established some relationship and connection with myself, what's a healthy way for me to nourish the garden of my soul instead of being like, here's my garden, I know, or here's my soul, I know I need to do this, this, and this, and feed it this thing and this. And again, there's certain things in our life that do align with a little bit more regimented things, right? We do need to have a certain number of, you know, vitamins and minerals in our life or whatever. So there's ways that it can be regimented, but we want to look at the overarching energy as more of like a nourishing of a garden instead of just like, this is a machine I need to put things into, instead of listening to that dialogue and back and forth with ourselves and thinking about the ways that we can actually have a more loving, compassionate relation with ourselves in that way. Because, for example, you have to think about, um, there's a time and a place to have that structure, but you need to think about the ways that maybe, if it's been raining outside all day today, you don't need to water your garden as much. So if you've been going through a harder time, maybe pushing yourself to do, X, Y, and Z thing that is good for you, maybe that's not the time and the place to do that. And of course, when you're getting your footing with new habits or you're starting to do something that maybe you never did before, it can be very helpful to have structured guidance in your life because you are figuring out the best way to go about it, the best way to figure out how that goes into your life. But once something has become a habit or you're familiar with it, you can you want to create neural pathways of like compassion more so than like rigid, I have to do this all the time, and it's more about giving yourself a break than pushing yourself into this really intense, unforgiving, just shame energy, right? And this is the difference too of some people can be doing all the right things, but their energy still feels really off, or they're not like they're not at peace with themselves because they're doing all the right things as like a checklist, but they're not even checking in, is that what I need to be doing, right? So you could be doing all the self-help, self-care, whatever things in the world, but if that's not what your body actually needs, or if you're not doing the emotional work along with that, that's not actually going to serve you. So when you think about going into a garden again, like it's not like you can go out there and just do it and take care of the things you need to take care of and then walk away and do all of that. But if you've ever gardened anything or you've spent time in nature, just how different it is to walk mindfully, to be aware, to connect with the plants that are there, the energy that's there, that versus just like, I'm here to do my thing. I'm going to drop it off. I'm going to take care of it and move on and move forward with that. So you want to think about the ways that, you have this toolkit of, I know to take care of myself. I like this and this thing, but you don't have to be as rigid with it as like, okay, woke up at 6 a.m., meditated for 15 minutes, check, then I did this, check, then I did that, check. It's not so much about, am I doing this specific thing, but it's like, is that actually something that feels good for me? Is that actually something I connect to? Is that actually something that serves me? Is that actually a practice that's helpful for me? And the other piece we want to think about with this too is like, a garden from 6 years ago is going to look different than a garden from like today or 6 years in the future. So when you're thinking about like, if we are a robot, right, we need the exact same things our whole entire lives. Maybe a certain exercise regime that you like 6 years ago is not the same place your body's at today versus, maybe there was a time where you really needed to meditate all day, every day, or journal all day, every day. And now you can just journal like once a week and that's fine. Or, it doesn't have to be as rigid and structured, but there is space for that nuance. And it's about tending and listening and using that intuitive connection to yourself to be able to focus on like the maintenance and care of yourself in a more intuitive way versus just like, I'm a robot, this is what I have to do, take care of myself, that's it. So with this, we want to make sure that we're not just getting into robotic lists and being completely disconnected from it, but checking in with your body and being like, wow, I went through a stressful time, so maybe I want to, even things that are good for me, I just maybe need to sleep a little bit more. And that's like the care that I need this week or this month or whatever, instead of, I need to keep pushing myself to work really hard to get to this particular thing. And so when we think about it as like an intuitive dialogue between ourselves back and forth and knowing, this is my healthy toolkit, this is what I have in my life, like which things do I need to apply to what, that is the point of this, is to hopefully be a little bit more compassionate and loving towards yourself, instead of just like, this is my checklist I have to do for myself and that's it. And again, obviously it can be very helpful to have structure. It can be very helpful, especially when you're building a new habit or, you're trying to reach a certain goal. We do need to have a particular set of structure. You're not gonna like be able to run a marathon if you don't go running every day, right? It's not just gonna magically happen. So we do need to have structure in your life around certain goals, but this is just general upkeep, general day-to-day things in your life, general maintenance of your energy. It can be very helpful to think of yourself as, if I'm a garden, and what am I hearing? What do I need? What do I need to do with that? And maybe parts of, you think about in a garden, like part of the garden maybe got ignored. So you need to put a little bit more love and compassion in that part, or this one plant or vegetable or whatever isn't doing well over here. What can I do to give it a little more love and care and attention? And then the thing on earth is all about maintenance. It's all about our relationship with ourselves. It's all about making sure that we are continuing to show up for ourselves and develop that loving kindness energy with ourselves. And so maybe, you go through a season where you just want to grow carrots for 6 years and then you're just like, okay, actually I'm done with that now. So not judging if, this practice I used for really long and served me just kind of doesn't resonate with me anymore. So I'm going to move into something else. And then another piece to think about with the garden thing too, is there is external factors, right? If you live somewhere where there's different seasons, or even if it rains or it snows or it's colder sometimes of the year than others, right? Those are going to affect the way that you need to take care of that particular garden. So you can think about the ways that, okay, if I'm, like I said, if you're going through a harder time, maybe you need to rest a little bit more. Or if you feel like you have a lot of energy and a lot of abundance and this thing is shifted in your life, you're going to need a little bit different procedure of your self-care than you had before. And so it's not about judging yourself or like, you need to trust yourself that you can do what you need to do to take care of yourself intuitively. Now, again, most of us are born amazing and then we get kind of disconnected from ourselves in childhood. And so depending where you're at in your process of rebuilding your relationship with yourself, again, you might need a little bit more structure than if you're a little bit, you've been doing this a little bit longer. So for example, if you're trying to break an addiction or trying to make a new habit, again, that might be a time where you need to have a little bit more structure. But even that we can understand, if you're planting new seeds for something, right, you need to check on them every day. And maybe it doesn't seem like something's happening, but things are happening below the surface. So maybe, I need to plant this, I need to weed it every day, I need to do this every day. But just remember that all of this is happening and it's adding up. And so just because you aren't seeing results right away, or it might seem like nothing's happening, or it might seem like, is anything ever going to grow in my garden, or this isn't working for me, just trust that there is a process, there is a timeline. But looking at ourselves as gardens and things that need nourishment and care, and like it's more of a reciprocal relationship when we think about it like that, than with a robot or a machine that's just like, put this in, does it every time, the end. I don't have to think about it that much. So this is more of like an intuitive, loving check-in space with yourself, and thinking about like, okay, is this something that I actually need to be doing, or what's going on here? You kind of want to look at the factors affecting the area, but just knowing that, it's not natural for us as humans in our relationship with ourselves to follow this strict, rigid thing all the time. And nature is such a beautiful metaphor for so many things in our lives and so many healing patterns we need. And even look at the moon, right? Changes cycles every month, every day. It's in a different place. And so we need to understand and have that same compassion for ourselves. We're going to need different things at different times in our lives. During the day, we need different things. During certain periods in our lives, certain years in our lives, certain seasons in our lives. And so when we can look at ourselves and look at how we're interacting with ourselves and this intuitive relationship we have with ourselves, it can be so much more loving and helpful for us to think of ourselves as like a garden, as something that needs love and care from more of an intuitive place than just like, here's a checklist, here's what I have to do, the end. And again, that can be healthy, but that's also part of having a garden, is knowing that, okay, during this 3-month period, I know I need to be doing this and this, right? When things are in full bloom, you have to prune them like once a week. Or there's stuff where if you're at peak harvest season, you have to pull those things every day, right? You have to harvest every day. So there is a time to have some more of that structure. But again, this is about being intuitive and being kind and loving and compassionate, instead of being just like this really rigid, like, I'm doing everything right, but why isn't everything happening? Because if you're using that checklist as a shame thing of like, oh, look, I was supposed to do these 10 things today and I didn't do them, so I suck, and now I'm not even good at self-care, right? We want to look at the ways that you having a relationship with your body and it telling you, maybe I need to rest a little bit more than I thought, or I need to, not do this thing that I thought I needed to do for a long time. You listening to that energy is going to serve you way more, because there's way less judgment and shame energy there than if you're just like, here's my 10 things I need to do every day, and I'm totally disconnected and I don't even know if they're working for me or if they feel good, but I just did them, so check, did it. This is about developing a relationship with yourself. And then there is a healthy toolkit. Obviously, it's healthier. There are certain things that are healthier activities, and even indulgence can be some of that sometimes, right? But there are healthier things in our toolkit we can have than certain other things. And so this is about listening to that intuitive voice and just trusting, like, you're not going to be perfect all the time. Perfect, right? You're not going to be perfect all the time. We're not robots. We're not machines. It is very important to have this intuitive energy within ourselves to be able to understand the ways that our body is processing so many things we don't even know. Like, just think about how much stuff our body does for us all day, every day. Our body is processing so many things we don't know about. There's so many things energetically going on that we don't know about. There's so many things, like, we don't know how long the body holds on to certain traumas or stories or whatever, generationally, just you from your past lives. Like, all these things are going on and we don't know that. So who are we to judge what our body is asking from us at a particular time? So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this serves you. Just remember, the point of anything you do for yourself is to develop more love and compassion for yourself. And so having a garden within yourself and thinking of it as like a loving, caring, tender thing you want to allow things to grow from, instead of just like, this very hard, rigid checklist, I have to get it done, can definitely serve you long term. Thank you so much for being with me. If you stayed here to the end, if you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.